Good evening. Not even sure if you can see me in this this darkness. I haven't made a video in a while, so I thought I would tonight. I have something special for you. It's weird, it was Mother's Day recently, and I was going through all my old emails trying to find something significant to write to my wife, and instead of that I found an email from my brother who passed away last year. And it was interesting, old email, all the way back from 2010, back when I was speaking to him. And he had a poem in it. And being my typical self-involved self, I didn't actually read the poem at the time, all those years ago, but I did recently. And it was pretty insightful. Wish I had read it then. Anyway. My stupid way, I thought I'd come outside with a glass of whiskey and I'd read the poem. So, it's by a Greek poet called Constantine Peter Cavafy. He was an Egyptian Greek poet, a journalist and a civil servant, and apparently he's one of Greece's most famous modern poets, and I'd never heard of him, but then again, if you told me to list the top 5 Greek poets, I would probably be able to list none of them. This poem my brother knew because it was translated from the original Greek by Lawrence Durrell. Now, Lawrence Durrell might be a name you are familiar with. Lawrence Durrell was the brother of Gerald Durrell, who was a very famous British author. He wrote My Family and Other Animals. It was a TV show in the 80s. It was a very famous book. It has particular significance for me and for my family because when I was a kid, we used to go on holiday to Corfu in Greece. And one year we stayed in the White House, which was the same house that Gerald Durrell and his family stayed at. And when was it? I think it was the 1930s. I don't know, but it's interesting. My brother always had a deep affinity for Lawrence Durrell. And it's funny, I mean, you look at these terrible British authors and things like that who we all have our affinities for. I mean, I'm a big fan of Ian Fleming. And Lawrence Durrell in many ways was just as terrible as him and just as eminently quotable and just as interesting an author. Actually, it's interesting, when my brother passed away, I spent a lot of time reading Lawrence Durrell, and there are a couple of quotes that I have here that really resonated with me. The first was, "There are only 3 things to be done with a woman. You can love her, suffer for her, or turn her into literature." I mean, you know, me and my brother being pretentious bastards, that's absolutely what we would think. So there we go. I love that quote. There's another one along the same veins. These are very Fleming-esque, but it's interesting because I imagine like Lawrence Durrell was roughly the same age. I think he was a little older than Ian Fleming, but you know, roughly the same age, roughly the same like upper middle class, international, colonial British upbringing. So it makes sense that they were both eminently quotable. The second one, "A woman's best love letters are always written to the man she is betraying." Don't you just love that? I'm such a cynic that I particularly enjoy that. Anyway, so Lawrence Durrell translated this poem, and it's one of the reasons why Constantine Peter Cavafy is known as one of the foremost Greek poets, because he was introduced to a British audience by Lawrence Durrell, amongst other writers. Anyway, this one, my brother said, explained a lot of him, and I think if you listen to it, you can understand why. So I'm going to take a sip of whiskey. Let's do this. "You tell yourself, I'll be gone to some other land, some other sea, to a city lovelier far than this could ever have been or hope to be, where every step now tightens the noose, a heart in a body buried and out of use. How long must I be here, confined among these dreary purely as the common mind. Wherever now I look, black ruins of my life rise into view. So many years have I been here spending and squandering and nothing gained. There's no new land, my friend, no new sea, for the city will follow you. In the same streets you'll wander endlessly. The same mental suburbs slip from youth to age. In the same house go white at last. The city is a cage. No other places, always this. Your earthly landfall, and no other ship exists to take you from yourself. Ah, don't you see? Just as you ruined your life in this one plot of ground, you've ruined its worth everywhere now, over the whole earth. Yeah, it's not a cherry read. But, my God, does it speak a lot to my brother. And it's true. I mean, there's something very true about that. Wherever in the world you go, you could never escape yourself. And I mean, I know that better than anybody. I remember when I was growing up in England, I was spending my teenage years in Cornwall in the middle of, you know, the arse end of England, and thinking that was the be-all and end-all. And then, yeah, I dated a nice girl from Oxford, and I was like, wow, England's a big place, maybe I could go somewhere else. And I wound up in France, and I was like, wow, Europe's a big place, I could go anywhere else. And then I wound up in New York, and I was like, you know what? The world is a huge place, you can go anywhere. But the one place you could never escape is in here. And it's so funny. You can travel 3,000 miles away from where you were born and where you were brought up. You bring every single brick of your foundation, of your identity with you. And it's interesting. And I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm proud of it. I'm very happy with everything that I've learned and the journey I've been on, but I can understand my poor brother. It's so interesting, he had the same upbringing as me, but he just saw it differently, and just as I've used it as a foundation for my life, to him it was like an anchor. And he traveled the world too. I mean, he lived in Hungary, he lived in Poland, he lived in Paris, but he could never escape that city in his mind, those same streets, just as the poem goes. So I don't know, it was really interesting, and it meant a lot, and I just wanted to drink some whiskey and go out to the lake and read it. And you can see the thunder behind me, which I kind of like. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to my stupid ramblings. Good night, and I will maybe make another video again sometime soon. Cheers.